In June of 2012, I adopted Mia, a 3-year-old black and white female English Springer Spaniel rescue dog. When I went to pick her up from her foster family in Denver, she was so frightened of me that the foster dad had to place her in the cab of my pickup before I could drive back to the family cottage on Grand Lake. It wasn't just me she was frightened of, but everyone she came into contact with. Mia was born in a Missouri puppy mill and later became a puppy producer, missing out on a normal puppyhood. She had been in the rescue system for a year but had not been adopted because of her fears. I felt that I might have the answer to helping her overcome her constant fear of the unfamiliar and unknown. On the 4th of July that summer, Mia and I walked down the lake trail to attend a luncheon with some friends. I was the first guest to arrive, so we sat on the boat dock waiting for the others. I left her on the dock while I asked Marlene if I could bring her in. When I returned to the dock to get her, she was gone. I asked the 2 grandchildren on the dock if they had seen which way she had gone, but they had not. I walked the trail both directions for a short distance calling her name, but with no luck. I reasoned that she only knew the trail we had walked and that I would probably find her back at the cottage, so I stayed for lunch. When I walked the trail home, I called her name again, but no dog came. When I arrived at the cottage, she was not there either. Once again, I started back down the trail to Marlene's house calling for her. I continued past Marlene's house and on to the nearest neighbors, but still no Mia. Each day that week I drove down to the east end of the lake and walked the area calling her name and speaking with the few residents who lived there. It was a guilt-ridden week for me. At the time I did not understand the panic she must have experienced when she realized I was missing. A week later I received a call from Kay, the owner of the first house east of Marlene's, telling me that Mia was on their property and that I should come retrieve her. The moment I whistled for her, she came bounding down the mountainside toward me. We were both very happy to see each other. I soon discovered that Mia also had separation anxiety and would not leave my side. I could not leave her home alone. She would stay in my pickup for hours but not in the house. In her panic one time she jumped onto the toilet in the lower-level bathroom and went straight out through the window screen. In trying to get back into the cottage looking for me, she destroyed both wooden screen doors. My solution was simply to take her wherever I went, parking in the shade of a pine tree and leaving her in the pickup with the windows down. Not much changed that summer and Mia spent lots of time with me and alone in my blue Ford Ranger pickup. In October we returned to our home in southwest Nebraska. About the only change in her behavior before returning to Grand Lake the following May was that I could change the inflection in my voice and she would not cower. That meant we could roughhouse on the floor. On walks she learned that there were safe places for her in the city park when she was with me. In late August of 2013, when things slowed down around the town of Grand Lake, I decided she should be around people more often. Perhaps she would learn that folks were not something to fear. I began taking her with me to the coffee shop, the Hub, which had an outside eating area with several round tables and chairs. I would sit and read The Brain That Changes Itself while she lay beside me. Eventually she became curious and began looking for drop crumbs under the empty tables. Later she started checking under tables that were occupied. Occasionally someone would reach down and pet her. Over time she realized that people were safe and that she could search for crumbs without fear. By the end of that summer she would even allow some dog lovers to pet her away from the Hub, although she still had not barked like most dogs do. By the summer of 2015 her whole world changed. Instead of sitting outside, We began having coffee in the mornings with a couple of old geezers like myself. Mia became the unofficial greeter at the hub. When someone entered, she would walk up to them asking for a pat or a good head rub. She even began barking when she saw another dog approaching and occasionally played chase with them. I now considered Mia a normal dog. We walked without a leash. She came and called and barked when she heard the doorbell or someone knocking. I could even leave her home alone without finding the door or carpet destroyed. At the time I did not understand the brain mechanics behind Mia's fears and transformation. Now, after studying more about the brain and mind, I understand what happened. By the summer of 2019, Mia and I were still enjoying our time together. She had developed pain in her right rear hip and needed help getting into my Ford Ranger. With time, walks, and climbing the cottage steps, she improved and even learned not to lead with that leg. Because the Hub coffee shop was closed for remodeling, I began having coffee at a place called Jumpstart on the east end of town. On the drive through town, we passed Lulu City Donut and Coffee Shop. Every morning at 7 a.m. a box of yesterday's donuts appeared outside labeled, "Doggy Donuts." Mia and I would stop and she would receive one. Eventually it occurred to me that I could use the stale donut to teach her new tricks. With time she learned to shake with either paw depending on which hand I held out. She would sit and stay while I walked several businesses away along the boardwalk. When I raised my hand, she would come running, stop, and sit in front of me until I dropped a small piece of donut above her head. Most of the time she caught it. When the donut was gone, we would return to the pickup and I would open the passenger door. Still excited from her morning treat, she would jump in without any help. In October, on the drive home from Grand Lake, I realized my eyesight had deteriorated so much that it would be my last drive there. From then on I would travel between Nebraska and Colorado on Amtrak. I had known that day would come, but I had hoped it would come later. Because of several reasons, the primary one being that Mia weighed 50 pounds and Amtrak's limit is 20 pounds for animals, I could not take Mia on the train with me. I decided to find her a good home. In December, a good friend drove Mia and me halfway to meet Ann and Jim in East Central Colorado. Mia knew them well and had stayed with them many times when they lived near McCook. She is doing fine there, but it took several weeks before I stopped talking to her when I got up from my computer to walk upstairs. I have had many dogs over the years and always expected there would be another one after each loss. I cannot say that now. Mia was my last one. It is hard to admit that, but I am also on my last car and truck. For a while longer I can safely drive around McCook and Grand Lake during daylight hours, but night driving must now be left to others. This new chapter in the dimming twilight of my journey will be the first time in my life without a dog as my sidekick. I have many wonderful memories with my canine companions over a lifetime. I thank every one of them for the joy they brought me. Goodbye, my old friends. Postscript. Around the 4th of July the next year 2020, Anne called me to let me know that Mia had just passed on of unknown causes. My initial thought was that it must have been from a broken heart. Nothing like a good guilt trip.